Classic is a planetary unit, meaning that there are two things going on simultaneously. As the grinder turns, there are two motions going. The entire unit itself is turning, and the three separate satellites are turning as well. That's the planetary component. It is also a counter-rotating grinder. The entire unit itself is turning counterclockwise, where each of the satellites or the heads turn clockwise. There are two types of plates which can be mounted to the grinder. There's the rigid plate, which we have here, and the flex plate, which we have here. You'll notice with the rigid plate, it is an all-metal plate. There is no flex to it at all. That's why it's called a rigid plate. Your metal bond tooling and your PCD tooling, any aggressive type of tooling that's going to grind or cut, should be mounted to the rigid plates. When you're in your honing stages for your resin bond tooling or your transitional type tools, those you will mount to the flex plate. The flex plate is going to have a little bit of give to it, which is going to protect against any type of foul scratching. You will notice that there are 6 shoes located around both the rigid plate and the flex plate. So when I go to mount my diamonds, again, I'm going to use metal bond tooling for my rigid plate. It's very, very simple. You'll notice that the back of the diamond is beveled, and so is the shoe. So when I go to put the diamond on, I'm simply going to just slide the diamond. There's only one way it can go on. I will slide the diamond up until it will not go any further. And then with a hammer, either a rubber mallet like this one here, or a hammer, I'm just simply going to give it a couple of good taps to secure it. Once I've got all my diamonds loaded, I'm going to go ahead and put a full set on here. Once I have all the diamonds loaded, I'm going to mount it to the grinder. And the centrifugal force of the grinder, as it turns, will hold the diamonds in place. So I don't really have any concern with the diamonds flying off, because the centrifugal force of the grinder is going to hold the diamonds on. Once I've mounted the diamonds to the plate, I'm ready to go ahead and put it on the grinder itself. I'm simply going to line it up, and it will slide into place like so. To secure the plate to the grinder, I'm simply going to take that middle piece and I'm going to turn it, which is going to prevent that plate from sliding back off. You also have another feature, another secure feature or safety feature. You'll notice that around the plate there are 6 holes which you can put screws in to also secure the plate to the actual head assembly itself. The 800 Classic has 2 types of shrouds depending upon how new or how old the actual grinder is. The newer models will have the floating shroud, and that's the one that you see here on this particular grinder. The shroud will actually float. It will automatically adjust itself to the floor, and it will also automatically adjust itself to the height of the diamonds. So there's no real adjustments that need to be made with this particular type of shroud, since it's a floating shroud. Again, it is on the newer style grinders, and is a much better design, I believe, when it comes to controlling the dust and also automatically adjusting itself to the contour of the floor. The other type of shroud that you may see with the 800 Classic on the older models is the Velcro shroud. And that's what we have here. The bottom of the grinder will actually be lined with the hook part of the Velcro, and then your shroud is the loop part. So what you will do is you will just attach it using the Velcro to the bottom of the grinder. A couple things you want to be sure of. One, heights of the diamonds change, so you want to make sure that you're always checking the shroud to make sure that it's sitting at the proper height. Also, the contour of the floor may change a little bit, so you just want to be aware of that as well. The proper height for the shroud, you want the shroud basically resting on the ground when you go to attach it to the grinder. You don't really want it smashing, either smashing out like this, and you also don't want it sitting too high. If the shroud sits too high, the vacuum is not going to, there's not a seal that's created, and the vacuum is not going to be able to contain the dust and keep it from going airborne. If the shroud sits too low, what can happen is the shroud will actually fold underneath the grinder, and the diamonds which are turning underneath there will hit it and basically chew it apart. So it's really important that you're paying attention to that shroud, to the height of that shroud as you change your diamonds and also as you begin to grind. There are 3 weights on the grinder, 2 of which can be removed, and this will adjust the weight of the grinder, which then influences the down pressure on the diamonds. Each of the weights weigh somewhere between 37 and 38 pounds. When removing the weight, there are 2 tabs in the back, 2 tabs on the side, and 1 in the front. So when I go to remove the weight, I will pull the weight away from the grinder, away from the motor. The water container is located on the front of the grinder, right by the handle and right in front of the electrical box, which is located in the back of the grinder. There is a hole at the top to fill the water. This would be used if you are going to be doing a wet grind, meaning that you will be using water in order to grind and polish, keep the diamonds cool, cut more efficiently, so on and so forth. So we have the tank here. You fill the tank. There's a water line which runs down out of the bottom of the tank, and then that water line carries the water all the way to the front of the grinder where it is emptied out, and then the grinder uses that water to cut the floor. The grinder is going to come with a 50-foot cord that plugs in to the side of the electrical box, which provides power to the grinder. There's only one way you can do it. You'll notice that there is a notch right here on the plug, and there also is a notch on the receptacle, which is on the electrical box. So that has to line up, which I'll put it on like this. When that lines up, it's going to slide up completely, and you'll want to make sure that you slide the plug to the grinder all the way up. The flap on the plug will cover this tab, which is on the receptacle of the electrical box. Another way that I know that the plug is completely on is there are 3 indicator lights at the top of the receptacle. Those indicator lights will all be lit up when the plug is completely engaged into the receptacle. The electrical box is located in the back of the grinder. To open the electrical box, there will be a key that comes with the grinder. If there is not a key that comes with the grinder, a standard flathead screwdriver can open up the box. So I'm simply going to take it and I'm going to turn it like so. There are two spots where you need to turn it. And then inside of the electrical box, you'll see I have the inverter or the computer, which is located right here. Also, there is a sticker on the inside of the door as well, which gives me the serial number and also important information as far as electricity requirements, amperage, so on and so forth. So this is basically the guts of the grinder here. The inverter or the computer, if there is any reason why the computer shuts off, a fault code will read on the computer or the inverter here, and then there are a few fault codes located on the door of the electrical box. There is also an extensive list of error codes in the manual which you receive. If you do not have a manual, you can call in to, say, Runyon, and if you give us the error code which is being read, we can then pinpoint what exactly is going on with the grinder. So here we have the control panel or the control box. In the top right hand corner of the control box we have our emergency stop button. This will cut all power to the machine itself. So by depressing it, we activate the emergency stop. To take the emergency stop off, it's just simply a push down and turn, and then the emergency stop will pop out. It will actually come out. The duty light, which is located at the top left-hand corner of the control box, tells me that I have power to the grinder. The reset button is located in the middle left-hand portion of the control box. If an error code is sent to the inverter to basically clear that code and to try to get the grinder running again, you will just simply press the reset button. In the middle right-hand portion of the control box is your potentiometer. This controls how quickly the planetary unit turns. The speed at which the planetary unit is turning is controlled by the potentiometer, which is located in the middle right-hand portion of the control box. The bottom left-hand control on the control box controls which way the planetary unit and the satellite heads turn. There are three positions. The middle position is the neutral position. This stops the grinder from turning. I will turn the switch to forward. Again, that turns your satellite heads in the clockwise position and your planetary unit in the counterclockwise direction. If I wanted to turn the planetary heads in the counterclockwise direction and the planetary unit in the clockwise direction, I would run it in reverse. Direction really isn't that important unless you are running PCD diamonds, which are directional tools. So it is important that those are turning in the correct direction. But when running metal bond tools and resin bond tools, running it in forward or reverse doesn't really matter. The bottom right hand portion of the control box is the on-off button. So after I have depressed the emergency stop button, I will turn the knob to on. At that point, my green light should illuminate, telling me that I have power to the grinder and that the grinder is ready to begin working.